Welcome to my quick guide on the best races specifically for Sunfury Fire Mage in the War Within Season 2 arenas. Here's a quick look at the overall tier list, and in this video I'll explain the thinking behind my rankings. Starting with S tier, we have Dark Iron Dwarf. The main strength of Dark Iron Dwarves is their Fireblood racial, which dispels all debuffs and increases your spell power. You can get extra primary stat depending on the number of debuffs you dispel with the ability. This is my top pick for Sunfury Fire, because our main predators are Feral Druids and Assassination Rogues. Because Fire only has one ice block, we are the most vulnerable specialization out of the three, and being able to completely counter the burst of a Feral Druid or Assassination Rogue means you win versus these dangerous classes more often. If you fight a team that doesn't have any big damage physical dots, you can just use Fireblood for extra burst damage, but be careful, since this shares a 30-second cooldown with your trinket. Next up, the most commonly known best choice for Mage, Night Elf. Night Elf comes with an extra 2% movement speed, which is very valuable in PvP. You also get an extra 1% critical strike during the day and 1% haste at night. Both of these passives, along with the ability to Shadow Meld and avoid instant CC, makes Night Elf the strongest pick for Mage overall for flexing all three specs and hero talents. This is also, therefore, a really strong pick for Sunfury Fire. However, I find Shadow Meld to be difficult to use, even with my 18 years of experience playing WoW. The reason is because you need to cast Shadow Meld at the same time or slightly after the enemy uses instant crowd control. This is easier with spells like Warrior's Stormbolt, which has a traveling animation making it easier to predict and counter, but nearly impossible without add-ons against an instant stun like Kidney Shot, which is still possible to nullify using Shadow Meld if you predict when the stun will happen. Because of that high skill floor, I'm going to rank Night Elf under Dark Iron Dwarf. Moving down to A tier, we have Orc. Orcs have hardiness, which reduces the duration of all stuns passively, which is really good for uptime in 3s and fighting counter comps in 2s. Blood Fury is also a great tool for increasing burst damage. The next equivalent choice being Human. Humans have a stun trinket, every man for himself, which is really good against Rogue Mage mirrors in 2s, and also helps you get out of more stuns in general, which will increase your damage uptime in 3s. However, the passive versatility bonus is usually outweighed by gear, so humans don't have the extra burst with Blood Fury, unlike Orcs, but can technically provide more outplayability using their on-demand stun trinket to secure setups. Regular dwarves are still a solid choice, considering that they also have 2% passive critical strike chance, which helps sustain damage, and Stone Form still allows you to counter Feral and Assassination Rogue burst, but unlike Dark Iron Dwarf, doesn't increase your primary stat. All of these racials are much more reliable than the runner-up, but still one of my favorite races, Void Elf. Void Elves have a passive 5% versatility bonus, which helps your sustain damage, and they also get access to Spatial Rift, which allows you to teleport further than Blinker Displacement. This allows for some crazy alter-time Void Shift outplayability in PvP to avoid melee, by casting Spatial Rift at the end of alter time, since both of these spells have infinite range in Arena. But this does nothing to help you versus other wizards, except Boomkin, since you can Spatial Rift out of Root Beam. Pandaren come next since their passive food bonus increases versatility, which helps sustain damage. However, it usually gets outweighed by gear in later seasons of PvP. Now the rest of the races are pretty self-explanatory since their racials and passives are simply outperformed by the aforementioned races. B tier, Undead. Undead Touch of the Grave is shadow damage, which Sunfury does not have any synergy with, unlike Unholy Death Knights. Their Fear Trinket is okay, but not as useful as other options. Worgen. Their speed boost can come in handy, but not as much as Blink or Shimmer. Mages are already super mobile, so Dark Flight doesn't really add anything to the toolkit, and their passive 2% crit chance is only going to slightly increase sustain damage. Taurens. The extra health is nice, especially for fire. However, the stun is easily countered and not long enough to secure big damage. The same goes for Kul Tirans. And everything else is pretty much F tier. Mecha Gnomes are the best race for PvE. Trolls offer some nice one-shot potential with Berserking, which grants 20% haste. The other allied races like Nightborn, Lightforged Draenei, and Maghar Orc offer a small damage racial ability, but unfortunately does not pair well with the Mage toolkit since these damage racials are on the global cooldown. Zandalari Trolls and regular Draenei offer a small healing racial, but this gets easily out-damaged and usually won't save you. Volpera's Nose for Trouble is very good at countering the damage of Demonology Warlocks and Beast Mastery Hunters, since every pet will deal 5% less damage each. However, this is arguably only a good pick whenever those two specs are absolutely overpowered and extremely popular. I personally think it's still possible to win versus Demolocks and BM Hunters without the extra health from Nose for Trouble. It's pretty much like rolling Tauren, but without the stun. Always keep in mind that racials make a very small impact on your gameplay, so don't worry if you aren't the current S tier race. This totem pole often resets from expansion to expansion, and unless you're trying to min-max, play what you think is cool. Thank you all for your patience with my upload schedule lately. Work really caught me off guard, and I've had a lot of car drama to deal with IRL, but hopefully my new streaming schedule will work. Be sure to tune in at twitch.tv/Tekayama, and thank you for watching.